Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So sorry about yesterday. I wasn't
Oh,
planning on.
it's okay. It's totally okay. Is everything okay with your family?
Yeah, everything is okay. It was a stupid thing, but yeah. But
Okay. Well,
anyways, I'm so happy to be here and connect with you today. And we're going to discuss a lot of things like music, book, TV show. So it's going to be great. And I want to start by discussing your new single, Andrea, which is, as you described it, letter to your younger self. So I guess this must be your most personal song so far. And I want to ask, like, why now? Why have you decided that now was the time for you to reflect on your younger self and address him this tender letter?
yeah. So I think the best part about songwriting is you're basically taking this, ethereal idea of something that you want to get off your chest. I always say that I write from either a personal experience or from like a persona. And my last song was called Blood, and it was very much from a persona. It was like a vampire character. So I wanted to do something to follow up that was a lot more personal. And I don't know, I think where I'm at in life, I was just very reflective on my younger self, completing some of the goals that I had set for myself when I was younger, and just reflecting on where I'm at now versus where I used to be and where I want to be in the future. And so this idea came to me. Growing up, my name was Andrea. My mom is Italian Brazilian. And I had this idea of referencing the name I used to go by before, I became an actor, and I decided to use Andrew Matarazzo instead. Now, things are more lenient in the industry with different ethnicities, and things are more diverse. So part of me wishes that I kept Andrea, but I think it was a form of kind of taking my identity back, but also, you know, healing my younger self with the words that I wish I could tell him.
And I don't know, but would it be too late for you, to go back and just now
Change
decide to
it.
call yourself Andrea Matarazzo?
Matarazzo, you said it good. Great.
Matarazzo.
Um, Yeah, I've thought about it a lot. There's some of my friends call me Andrea and family still. But I think I'll wait for the right moment, maybe my next big project, and I'll reintroduce myself to the world and to the industry. Uh, I just don't want to complicate anything right now. Fine with Andrew. It's not like I don't identify with that name. Matarazzo is still like, the core of my identity in my name. So I'm okay with Andrew for now, but I do think eventually I'm going to change it back to Andrea.
And while preparing this interview, I've read and watched a lot of interviews you did in the past. And in one of those, you said that it took you much longer to find your confidence and identity as a musician compared to being an actor. And I wonder, why was it more difficult?
I think, pre-COVID and lockdown, I was just so hyper focused on my one lane of passion, which I've had since I was 12, 13, and that was acting. And that has just always been a natural thread in my DNA. I did a lot of theater growing up, and that was just my comfort zone. And so I started singing through musical theater, which was kind of acting and music combined, but I didn't have my own voice and my own, musician identity. I was playing characters, and it was their voice and their stories. Um, so it took me a long time to consider myself as a musician also. And through having musician friends and jamming out with them and getting more confident, that's when I decided to post on YouTube for the first time. And I think that was the first time I was singing a cover of a song that wasn't a musical theater thing. And so it was starting to uncover my identity as a singer. And just over time, I got more comfortable with it. But it took me longer just because I've always thought of myself as just an actor. And I think that was a cool thing about lockdown was, the industry completely paused, and I was able to do music and have more control over music. So I think that was a big factor in the shift of, you can do a lot of different things. You don't have to stay in one lane. And
Yeah.
I always think, as you know, because you might have watched one of my music videos, but I use my music videos as a way to be an actor and a musician in one, sort of short film. So I think they're just more aligned than I used to think.
And today, how would you describe yourself as an artist? So not only a musician, but as a whole.
Yeah, I think just I like to say multifaceted, multi-hyphenate. Like I've embraced that I have many different interests. As a writer, doing music, creative directing, interior design. I love doing anything creative, and I think now I'm confident as an artist having my foot in many different arenas instead of it just being like I'm an actor, that's it, that's all I want to do with my life.
And I mean, he's all that, Teen Wolf or Rise. You're starting to kind of make a real name for yourself in the industry. So huge congrats on that. And what was or what is the most challenging thing about pursuing your path in Hollywood? Because it must be so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, things are changing a lot in our industry. And it's been a little scary, but I think the hardest part is that you just have no control over anything. I think as an artist, most of us are perfectionists and we just want to create and make what we're passionate about, but we don't really have control over a lot of aspects of creating and art. So that part is the hardest for me because I like to be in control. And I think that almost every avenue that I'm pursuing is I don't have any control over it. So I kind of have to relent and just I always say just the best you can and put in the work and continue to do what you're passionate about. And the rest you can't really control. You just have to go with the flow and see what happens.
And we often see you being like the college boy or university boy, and it gets me wondering, how were you? How were you like in high school?
Oh, in high school, I was very extroverted. I knew that I wanted to go to an art conservatory school, so I didn't care about any of the subjects that I didn't need for that, which was like math, science. So it was funny because my principal was so confused because some teachers said that I was like the worst kid in their class because I was a class clown. And then other teachers said I was their favorite, but it was because in the classes that I enjoyed and that I knew that I wanted to pursue, I was in great standing with the teachers, but the other classes I had no interest in. I definitely goofed off and I was a class clown. So I got into quite a bit of trouble in middle school and high school.
I can imagine. And what would be, your dream role if you have
I
to?
would love to play someone historic like I don't know, Alexander the Great or Amadeus, Mozart, like someone that would require a lot of research and a lot of transforming. I think that'd be cool. Also, I love period pieces. I love fantasy. Something like Game of Thrones would be so cool, especially if it was long term. I just love the idea of going back in time and having, specific outfit and how you sit and how you walk and what the lifestyle was back then. And also being able to see yourself on screen, fighting or riding a dragon is like the coolest part of cinema, I think.
Do you like, because you're talking about seeing yourself on screen, do you like sometimes struggle to, I know it's something for some actors to see you on screen, to see what you
Yeah.
did.
Not in when it's already on TV and it's already out in the world, I kind of watch it in a different way. And it's been quite a while since you filmed it. So I'm kind of more distant from it. I don't like watching myself if it's in the moment, like
Yeah.
on set, watching playbacks. I'll watch maybe a little bit if it's a specific thing that I'm just trying to gauge where I'm at, but I do trust the director usually. Um, and I know that if I watch myself, I start trying to just redo something that I liked and it just becomes very sterile. So I try not to watch myself in the creation of whatever the project is, but I'm okay with watching it in retrospect. I feel like no matter what, as an actor, you're always going to overanalyze yourself and critique yourself harder than anybody else. So I'm okay with it, I guess.
Yeah, and you're now exploring a whole new facet of the artist you are, the writer, because in 2 days actually your post-apocalyptic novel called Bedlam drops. So could you tell us what Bedlam is about?
Yeah, totally. I actually have the book right here. This is the proof copy though, so this isn't going to be on the actual cover, but
Okay.
this is the book that they sent me to like approve of the print before it goes to publish.
Okay.
So it's a I like to describe it as Euphoria meets The Walking Dead. It's post-apocalyptic, but that's more of the backdrop of the story. It really focuses on a group of teens in a survival situation, and it's about their relationships, their betrayals, lots of twists and turns. So it's kind of this teen drama that takes place in a post-apocalyptic moment in time.
Okay. And is the process of writing a song is the same as writing a story? And if not, what are the differences you recall?
Oh yeah, they're very different. I think writing a novel requires just an insane amount of planning and work, and you have to know so many characters in their brain. I think I use more of my actor brain while writing a book than music. I think the fact that I've read so many scripts and I've played characters, I know how to develop a character internally, so it helps me with writing different characters with different points of views and different minds, different wants and needs. With writing music, I think you always come in with a really strong idea or something you really want to say. I like to write titles of songs, like a subject of what I want to say before we even get into the lyrics. And I think with music, it's finding the sound and the instrumentals that really starts the beginning of the song. When you hear that sound that hits the exact emotion that you're trying to portray,
Yeah.
that's the start of the creation of a song. So yeah, I'm sure there's some similarities, but for the most part, I feel like I use completely different parts of my brain to write a novel and to write a track.
And when you were writing Bedlam, did you imagine how it would turn out if it was, adapted as a TV show or a movie?
Yeah. Funnily enough, I think I wrote it 100% with the intention that it would become a series eventually. It actually helped me in the sense that as an actor, imagining each chapter as an episode so that the character has a full, arc and experience. And, some chapters focus on one character more than the other. So I 100% want to turn it into a series eventually, hopefully on HBO. I don't think the genre of my book is new at all. I think we've seen many stories in this genre, but I always imagined it shot and directed in a way that has not been done before with this genre. I have a lot of really unique visions for how it would be translated into a series.
And would you cast yourself in it or like just a director view?
I think when I started it, it would have been cool, the thought of playing the main character. Obviously, it's written from my point of view, but the characters are 16, 17. So I think by the time the series is developed and out there in the world, I don't know if I'd be able to play the main character, but I would love to be part of the directing process and the creation process of it. And maybe there's another role that I can be a cameo in. But some part of me thinks it would be really cool to cast the characters externally, like not me in it, to be able to develop and watch other performers kind of take these characters and bring them to life would also be just an incredible experience.
Yeah. And so it's an epidemic story that you started writing before COVID on Wattpad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how did you reflect on the pandemic we've been through and the story you were writing at that time?
Yeah, it was wild. I started this idea of this book in middle school. So the fact that it started with a pandemic really was crazy. That I remember even reading, I had a page written in the first chapter that mentioned some people wearing like medical masks when they walked around town. And it like freaked me out that we were living through that. But that was a big reason why during lockdown, I was inspired to pick up the book again and start redesigning it and fleshing it out, because not only had I never had time really to finish the book, and lockdown provided such an unique opportunity of so much time on my hands, but it was also crazy to be living this wild experience, almost like I was living parts of the book. And again, my book isn't completely about a pandemic. It just starts that way. That's kind of the background of the environment that they're in. But it definitely helped me be in the zone of where these characters' minds are at and how the world in the book is functioning. Obviously, it's to more of an extreme extent, but there were so many similarities that were kind of creeping me out when I was rereading what I wrote in the past and what we were living through at that moment.
And are there any advice you could give to, the people out there? Because I'm sure there are so many that are wanting to start writing a story, but kind of struggling too because it takes a lot of time and huge creativity.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be very overwhelming. I think I always tell writers that ask me similar questions is it's whatever you're putting on the page is not what's going to be put out into the world. You can always go back and change things. Sometimes I write full chapters just to like get stuff out on the page, but most of it ends up changing and I can go back and restructure it or whatever. So I think that takes a lot of pressure off if you remember that just because you're writing it out doesn't mean that that's the final copy that's going to be in print. So I think that helps people get out of their mind with writer's block where they feel like everything they're putting down has to be perfect and like has to be the final version. Takes a lot of developing. And also never feeling the pressure of like you need to. I know some people have deadlines, but if you can help not having any deadlines, it's nice to be able to write on the days that you're really inspired. On the days you're not feeling that inspired, watch a great show or a good movie that maybe sparks that, or even just write bullet points of ideas that you want to throw in your book. So you at least feel like you were productive with thoughts and you don't necessarily have to write out a full entire chapter in that day.
Sure. Sure. And finally, the last question, but not least, in your life, you did a bunch of interviews, but if you could interview yourself, what question would you ask?
Oh, wow. That's a deep question. Um, I don't know. I think no one checks in with themselves these days, like especially other people don't check in with other people. So I would just say, like, are you happy? How are you doing? Everything good with you? That's what I'd ask myself. And at the moment, I am very happy. I do think there's a lot of like wild things happening in our industry right now, but that's why it's been really exciting that I have my new book Bedlam coming out, so I can kind of focus on a different creative avenue right now. I'm working on an EP that's coming out by the end of the year, so I'm working on a lot of music right now,
Cool.
and I'm just focusing on, taking it day by day and just doing what I love and trying to stay calm.
Are you planning to do like a small tour with your EP? Or is that something?
Yeah, I just did my first ever live performance in New York, which was crazy. That was a big step for me because, like I said, I've always thought of myself as an actor, and this was the first time I was doing a big show as a musician. So that gave me a lot of confidence to start exploring smaller venues, I'm doing a couple conventions next year.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think it'd be a cool opportunity to maybe perform something at one of those while I have an audience that's there to see me. That could be cool. And yeah, same with my book. Like I want to bring my book everywhere, order some copies to hand out to people, and it would be cool to even have those at the conventions I'm doing to see if I can get any new
Yeah,
kids on board.
yeah, there are also like book conventions that exist in
Yeah,
so maybe you could do
totally.
one of those too. That would
Yeah,
be
and I don't want to speak too soon, but I am trying to register everything with Barnes and Nobles. I've had a cool opportunity with Barnes and Nobles to potentially do something with them. So
that would
yeah,
be
lots of seeds being planted. So we'll see where it goes.